Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild podcast, a podcast all about the experiences and memories that playing games with friends and families can create. On this episode, we are interviewing the Kysie Returned group. Kysie Returned is a living campaign world for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It is based out of Butler, PA, and associated with the Circle of Swords Gaming Guild, their game days and conventions, COS VCON and CON, and the annual RockCon convention in Slippery Rock, PA, and they also come to the Butler Area Public Library game days. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Jason. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you, Peter. I'm the de facto leader of this group at the moment, and we can go into a bit of that history a bit later. But with us today is Eric Fry. He can say hello if he wants.
Good evening.
My daughter, Rebecca.
Hello.
And a friend of ours, Kim Luke.
Hello.
Three of us are some of the GMs for the group, that being Eric, Becca, and myself. And Kim's one of our players. It's been with us since the very beginning. That's us. Eric, you wanted to introduce the group?
Really, the idea of this with Kysie Returned was I wanted something, and I wanted to introduce a creative outlet for a bunch of the local game masters that I know that enjoyed the new edition of Dungeons & Dragons, but also weren't necessarily interested in the Adventures League, which there's nothing against Adventures League. I think they'd have some wonderful stuff, but it was an alternative. It was something also that maybe you could feel it was your own hometown local thing, a little bit of hometown pride. So what I did was years ago, a man named Jeff Hall created, along with a number of people from Circle of Swords, including the Rauschenbergers and Dave Schnorr, a world called Kysie, and they called it COS World, COS being short for Circle of Swords, the gaming guild. And for a while back during the time of 3rd edition D&D, I was like the de facto administrator of the game world, and I ended up handing it off to a friend of mine when my own life got a little too hectic to take care of it the way I wanted to. And I thought here was a great chance to use a new gaming engine and go back to an old game world that I knew a lot of people enjoyed. And it was a chance to bring the old gamers, myself, Jason, not to age myself, but we are a little bit more of the older school gamers, with the newer ones like Kim, who I only met because she sat down at our table, and Jason's daughter Becca, and a number of other new people. So that was really the impetus behind bringing COS World from something that was kind of forgotten into the new world and naming it Kysie Return.
That's more history than even I knew. I learned tonight.
Myself, I had to throw in a piece because I wasn't in the original Kysie, COS World, and so forth. And as a result, I knew that some of the old school gamers who had been there would find problems with some of the things that I decided to do. So I introduced the idea that the world was fractured, reality-wise. Kind of picked up off of the Mandela effect, if you're familiar with that, where people can remember things, whole groups of people can remember things that never happened. One of them, the one it's named for, is that Nelson Mandela died in the 80s. No, and that was just a little bit ago, and so forth. And that way then, whenever I introduce a town or a city, I'm not then immediately told, oh no, it's this thriving metropolis, whenever I said it's Lillehammer. And it's been good for that, and it's also added a number of other possibilities that I've had fun with.
I remember the campaign you introduced that in, actually. I was present for that.
Yes, you were present for my very first GM session for Kysie, which was at the original RockCon, actually, in 2017.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Before that, Eric had been running everything all by himself.
So I have a question about the formation of Kysie in general. So it's sort of like its own world, right? So you guys have made it. You've made up like the story behind the entire thing based on D&D, but it's your own story. How did that come about? And what was the creative process for that? Because it's pretty large.
Well, we had a body of existing stuff that Jeff Hall, the Rauschenbergers, and a number of previous DMs that had compiled. So it gave us a starting point. But it was a very classic kind of, this is not meant to cut the original creators or to downplay what they did, but it had a very carbon copy of Faerun from Forgotten Realms feel. You could very easily see parallels between the two. And while I wanted to preserve some of the feel of the original Kysie, I felt that we needed to go in new directions. So we took a lot of source material and we kind of sat down and we, for the first first few years, until COVID hit, we would have meetings every 6 months where we would get together at a central location and discuss some of the things we wanted to do, maybe what new rules we were going to implement or not going to implement. And it was the idea of, we want to move this forward in new directions to make it feel like something different, to make it feel like something its own instead of a carbon copy, which is where Jason with his Splintered Realities came into a lot of real handy with that. Becca, who started DMing not long after that, has done really wonderfully with some storylines. So it's kind of built that way. And I got to say, players like Kim have provided, the GMs provide the direction, but the players provide the motion. And players like Kim who have gotten very involved, Kim is doing a lot of the cartography now for it to update the maps. Players like her who get involved and have a lot of input have really provided the real pushing force for a lot of the direction that Kysie has gone.
One thing as far as like Kim, yeah, all those things, but also her energy's infectious. That's one of the things that it's always cool to see what she has to say about the module. I mean, she just brought up the one that I ran back at SlipRockCon, which I had a lot of fun with that one. And it's kind of influenced a lot of my storylines since then.
I was going to say, I think that's another significant difference in that we really want that engagement with the players. And I know Jason really does. He likes that feedback from the players about what worked, what didn't work, what did you like, what didn't you like, because it allows the people writing the modules to then say, oh, well, then I can steer away from this and go a different direction. It's direct player engagement that lets it mold a little bit better.
In the case of that adventure, it was immediate, the change in direction, because Eric was thinking that something was going to happen that I had no intention of happening, but it started making a far better story than what I had planned. So I went with that. And as a result, that story has kind of taken a life of its own.
Well, so I think, like, as I'm listening to you all talk about Kysie in the world, I am an individual who I've played some homebrew games and a homebrew campaign, but then when I get into the community, most of the time that I'm playing, it's Adventures League. So listening to you all talk about it, though, is just really, really interesting, because rather than picking up a module or a story to run for a group that was written by probably somebody you don't even know in real life, you've never met them more than likely, and then just running this adventure for a group of people also that you're going to sit down and maybe you've just met them for the convention that you're at or whatever, you all are continuing to meet together in all these different avenues and meeting new people, but you're sharing a world that is continual. You all are the ones writing the adventures. Your players are getting to give their input after the game about how they felt about it, and that's leading to guiding the way that you're writing the adventures. And so I just think it sounds really awesome. I mean, it's just like this super focused ongoing campaign that the players, if they stick around, get to not just mess with the world of the game that they're playing in, but also the way that the game itself is created and where it's going outside of the game by influencing the game masters who are writing the stories. So to me, it sounds really awesome and exciting. And I mean, again, I usually at Adventures Leagues, I'm gonna run a game that I purchased off of DM's Guild or wherever, and I'm gonna read it, I'm gonna learn it, I'm gonna run it, and that's fun. I have a really good time. But I think that the way that you're looking at it by just making it this continual thing for your group, and then hopefully bringing in new people to the group, is that something that you guys do often? Are you actively looking for new people to play Kysie games?
Absolutely.
Always.
I remember at the last RockCon, grabbed a guy who was originally running a different game altogether, but no one showed for his table. So we grabbed him, started talking about Kysie, and the mod that we were playing actually was an anti-mod in a way. I'll explain that one in a second, but convinced him to come over and sit down and play the game for the first time, just that way. Whereas the anti-mod, I myself am a bit of how shall I put it? Rebel might be a good way. I tend to find new ways to play the game. In that particular case, it was taking the improv portion of GMing and putting it the whole way. The players just got everything, in that particular one. It was an improv to the point where right from the beginning, I'm trying to think where I actually started, but pretty much empty space, and gave the players a chance to just say something. And then once that happened, I added something more to it. Then they added something, and I added something, and then it was turned into a quite interesting adventure. Not something that I would ever try to actually turn into a module otherwise, but we had a lot of fun. And that's really the whole point, is to have fun. One other time, I pretty much had us just play cards in character, but we were playing cards pretty much most of the mod. There's a little bit of combat before and a little bit of combat after, but a good hour or so was spent playing, actually, Three Dragon Ante, if you know that one from the D&D worlds. And so things like that. I think as far as the improv, Becca still has a transcript she made of the event.
I do, in fact, still have that Google document. It's only slightly biased in how I wrote it. I only, tweaked it slightly to make it just a little bit funnier. But I do still have it, and it's accurate, and it's got all the events that happened. Just how I described them is a little bit more than it might have actually been.
Actually, did you put that on Discord maybe?
I think I did edit it so that it was grammatically correct and all that, and put it on Discord.
The big thing is with a lot of this, and it's something that Jason, I'm sorry, that's the nickname I know him by. A little slip of the tongue there.
Everyone knows me by it.
But that's something that Jason and Becca have tipped onto is there's a certain philosophy when we write games for Kysie, and it's one that I kind of hold to, and it's why I like home games better than, like you said, Peter, with the Adventurers League. It's the idea that these are the players' stories. You're crafting the tale, you're creating the framework, but as the DM and the writer, it's not your story. The players are the one providing the characters and the motion and everything like that. So what we try to do with Kysie is to really keep that feel, so that, like you said, just buying a module from Adventurers League, don't get me wrong, they're well constructed modules, they're very well written, mechanically they're usually extremely well constructed, but there's a certain personal feeling that lacks from it. And that's really up to the DM at the table to try to add. And that's something that we try to put at the forefront with everything for Kysie, is the fact that the players are the reason this runs. So we want you to tell us good stories. We, the DMs, are the stories. Tell us your stories. We're just going to make it hard on you. That's all.
I don't think that's the point of it, to make it harder, but to make it a little bit more challenging, maybe. That might be a better way of putting it, because it'd be boring otherwise.
We have mentioned Adventurers League now several times, and I feel that there are probably a couple people listening that are not familiar with organized play and Dungeons and Dragons and how it functions. Do you want to give a high level overview before we dig into the weeds here?
I think I can probably handle that one. The organized play is pretty much the whole idea of having a group where we've got a couple dozen people that have played over the last couple years. Adventurers League is the Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons official world or gaming organized system. And what that is actually, I think that they've changed it some. Peter can give us a better idea on this part, but they have documents and so forth in order to keep everyone on the same page, such that you can sit down at any table that's running an Adventurers League for the level range that you're in and play it. Go into a game store and play, or a con. We're a little bit smaller than that, but still the same idea as far as the characters are balanced for it. They've gone through the same general build, such that you can sit down at one of our tables at any time and play with, the 20 of us or so that overall have played. And for a con, we usually have about 2 tables worth at a time. And that could be anywhere from 6 of us to being, I think one time, Eric, you ran a table of 9 because we didn't have another mod.
Yeah, that was at the very first rock con that they ran at the library. That was a table large enough. We literally took up 2 folding tables. The big thing I think that they were trying to get at is with organized play for any system. We've talked about Adventurers League because it's the D&D organized play. Is everybody starts on an equal playing level. There's no rolling dice for attributes. Everybody has the same range of it. Everybody has the same basic framework that they build from in order to create characters. So nobody has an unfair advantage over the others, and that's meant to keep it a little bit more balanced. The idea being so that you have fair play. And with the organized play of Adventurers League, and especially with us, the idea especially is we may have 2 or 3 tables worth of players, but for 1 4-hour slot, you may be sitting at a table with certain players, and then the next one, you're going to be with different players, but you're all still on the same level playing field as far as the mechanics go. Nobody has an unfair advantage over the other, everything like that. It's a nice even field. That way nobody gets the spotlight unnecessarily over the other.
Certainly all that. And then the part that we try to bring in is more like the home game, as people refer to it, where you have just a small group of people that meet. When we were younger, meet every week, or more recent or more often than that. Lately, it's been closer to once a month and things like that. But at that point, then it's just that small group of you going through and doing things. And so whatever happens, happens. With Kysie, we try to balance between the two so that, one of my jokes whenever I'm introducing it to people is if you burn down a town, that town is burnt down. Adventures League, the next time you play, that town could be perfectly fine. Now, admittedly, during the same con, it's still going to be there if someone else tries to run something, because we're not that fast at changing things. But it's the same basic idea where the world does change based on what you do.
Yeah, I really like that idea when you guys are running it, where you run your campaigns and stuff, and then what the people do during that play session affects the world, so that you always have new content and new things happening. Have you ever found were you able to always maintain that, or have you ever found where you had to just rerun a pre-done one?
I've actually, the one that Kim mentioned, and I've mentioned a couple times, the very first time I ran for Slippery Rock Con, interestingly, I ended up running it at the last Slippery Rock Con as well, just because through a few different situations, I ended up with a table of about 8 people who had never played Kysie before. A couple of them had never played D&D before. Like you were commenting before, we try to bring everyone in. And so at that point, I had a mod ready that was, I think, maybe a higher level than they were able to play, because everyone was starting with pre-generated characters. So as a result, I decided to go with what I knew best, which was that adventure.
I was going to say that mod is kind of a rite of passage one anyways, really, since it's such a big mechanic in the world. It's kind of an important one. And when you were talking about the world changing, I think that's something that I've really enjoyed with Kysie, is that my characters that I play will meet familiar characters, that my character will be familiar to them and vice versa. So it's not just like reading a novel or manipulating a novel. It's like the never-ending story of novels, where you're literally starting to see yourself writing Falcor. So,
bringing up your ferret, are you? Or is that a weasel?
It is a weasel.
Because I recall you named him Falcor, didn't you?
Oh gosh, did I? I don't remember. Now I need to look. I don't remember what I named him. I remember my fox is Redlum because it's Molar backwards.
I know I have never run a module more than once, but that's only because I literally am ridiculous and lousy with gaming ideas. I'm lucky enough that way that it's not hard for me to come up with new modules every con, but I have had people request to play modules over again just because they enjoyed them. And then I've had people say, dude, you need to never touch a module like that again. Normally you write really good stuff. What were you thinking?
Yeah.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. How many learning experiences have you run into? Had to adapt.
How many times have I run a game?
Well, okay, there's every game. But have you ever tried something new and been like, wow, that's not great, or wow, this is great, and you build upon it, or what's your normal evolution?
Actually, I think a good example of that, Jason, is the crit rule that was implemented for rolling critical strikes in combat. It was something that we tested out a few modules, and we found that it was a great way to do it because it was very satisfying for players to get higher damage tallies and feel like they hit a lot harder than the one that's implemented in the game. Now, what would be a good negative one? Because I know we've had a couple of them too.
Let's see. Well, first off, I probably ought to clarify your comment a bit.
Okay.
Because like Dan had commented, we're trying not to go off into the weeds.
Yeah.
You and I been doing this for far too long to realize it, but critical hit is in combat. You roll a d20, then add a number to it based on your skills and everything. I won't go into too much detail there. But if you roll a natural 20, which is the 20 on the 20-sided die, then that's considered a critical hit. hit, which is always a hit, regardless of anything else. But in the manual, and actually I think it's been that way since the beginning, you just roll 2 dice instead of 1, or 4 dice instead of 2 if the weapon happens to be rather strong. But as a result, there have been times when I just barely hit, but did all the damage you can possibly do. Then the next time I'm playing, I roll a critical hit. 20. It's great. Everyone's all excited. And I roll less than I did with that one I barely hit. So what he was saying is we just simply go with, you roll the usual, add the maximum and any other modifiers. And that's how that one works. So that you're getting something big regardless of, rather than just the die roll of 2 1s instead of 1, because that happens.
So if I was understanding that correct, on a critical hit, then you would roll your damage dice. Maybe it's a d6. You would roll that, but then you also add a 6.
Exactly.
Right, instead of the 2d6, you add the 6.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if you were doing a hit with a short sword, say you're doing a d6 plus 2 damage normally. If you crit, instead you roll the d6. Instead of adding just 2, you add a total of 8. The 2 plus a 6 for a max die roll.
Yep. No, I think that's a great homebrew option. I like it.
Yeah, we liked the idea, and then we tried it at a couple of tables, and then we decided to make it permanent because everyone liked it. We didn't have a single person who didn't. So,
well, I mean, who doesn't like doing more damage, right?
Yeah.
And some people have just that luck where every single time they rolled, they'd roll minimum damage, and so it just worked out that way. But back to the question of a negative experience, I ran a mod that was using a mechanic that I'd found on probably DM's Guild, that if you've ever seen the TV show Leverage, it was kind of like that as in regard to the mechanic of you're planning out the caper of whatever sort, then you make a few skill rolls to determine how well you've planned the whole thing, so that then you go and start actually doing it. And there were just a few different places where in this mechanic you did things completely differently than you do in a regular D&D session, and everybody was getting confused. It fell apart. I hopefully saved it at least enough for everyone to have fun still by dropping all of that mechanic and going with a straight D&D style operation. But that's part of my being a rebel, as far as my comment earlier. I try weird things. Sometimes they're fun. Other times I'm scrambling to make it all work. Kim was in that one. I don't know if she remembers it or not. You remember that?
I don't know that I do remember that one.
Well, I guess it wasn't too bad then.
Give me another detail. 'Cause
Let's see.
My brain is not.
It was 2 brothers
mama brain.
essentially fighting over a stein, a beer stein type thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that one. I do. Yes, I remember that.
Okay, in that case, then it may not be so traumatic, but enough that you remember it. Though, based on the other day, whenever we were getting ready for this, it seemed like you remembered just about every mod you've run, or been in, rather.
Oh, no, I don't remember everyone, but there are some details I remember from a lot of them. I mean, I'll never forget about teleporting rats in the arena.
Blame that one on Becca.
Arena in the
Never
sand.
forget them. That was the whole.
Yeah, it was like D&D Ragnarok.
Yeah.
It's great.
I remember that because I was in that one, getting a chance to play for once, which was kind of fun at Becca's table, and she had one teleport inside my shirt. Remember?
Dear.
Well, as I recall, that was her first time running.
Yes, it was. She did a wonderful job of challenging us all.
Yeah. Becca went from being a player to starting to run a table.
Shot you.
Becca, how do you think that went?
My transition or that mod?
Both.
I mean, definitely. I mean, even still, I'd consider myself pretty new to it. I know I've done it for like 2 or 3 years, and I consider myself to have run, a few. I definitely learn with each and every mod. But I feel pretty good with it. Like, I used to stress, and like the night before I was gonna run something, be like, oh my god, am I ready? Am I gonna do it? What if I can get something? Made my way through everything else. This will be fine. As far as that mod, it was very fun, and I've run it a few times, and honestly, each time people have like done their own things with it, which luckily for that mod, it totally works. It doesn't change how things go down the road, but like how they get into the mod and all that. It's been really interesting to see where people take it. And that mod is especially infuriating for some people. I've had a couple people who did not enjoy it or not least enjoy the beginning of it. There was a lot of, you can't do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that has happened. I think that happens with every game. You get the people who, I guess the term rage quit applies. I don't think anyone quit specifically because of any of that with us, but I do know that there were a few.
I had someone who didn't like what was a sand trap, sand pit combination spell, and definitely many people didn't love the rats at first. Once they saw the comedic effect of the rats, they definitely appreciated them more. Definitely saw the value of what a teleporting rat can do. I think we had one person strip down in an effort to get rid of the rats.
Not in real life, though, right? No.
Not in real life. No, that would not be something that we need.
Yeah, we don't exactly want to get kicked out of the venues.
No.
Let alone the venue. That's just not something we want to see or experience.
Yeah, strip D&D would be
I don't think that would be as enjoyable as some people might say.
That's a homebrew that should stay at home.
Yeah.
That's a homebrew that shouldn't exist at all.
Yeah, I'll go more that route. So I have a question on there because people might not know, but there's multiple different ways, at least I believe there still is, multiple different ways you can create your character. Some where you randomly roll the dice to get your stats, some where you roll the dice and then you can appoint them different ways. But I believe you guys use a point-based system. What went into the thoughts of using a point-based system over the other 2 or 3 or whatever it is?
Point-based in general, that's common to the organized play. Both Adventures League and Pathfinder Society, and I'm sure others, but those are the 2 that I've played, use that method so that you don't end up with the guy who just can't seem to roll less than 18 on 3d6. It's amazing, just, every single time.
Or me, 3 ones.
But that'd be me.
Yeah.
But this way, with the point buy, it allows everyone to have the same basis.
That level playing field.
Yeah.
And you can have more onus for your character too, because you created it, you set the stats, it's your person.
Yeah, that's the other nice thing is there's like a customization level to it too.
As not a organized play, but rather as a home game, I've played one system that actually rolled for everything in order. You actually had to create more than one character at a time because certain combinations of rolls would actually kill the character before it exists.
I think I remember that one. Was it a space one?
No, actually it's Dungeon Crawl Classics is the name of the
I think the one I'm thinking of was based off of that one. And yeah, your character could die in creation.
Yeah, they've made a number of copies of Dungeon Crawl Classics in different aspects, sci-fi and the rest of them.
I didn't like it.
No.
I was like, why am I spending forever making a character and it dies before I even start? How is that even possible? They had an aging system too. Like you picked a career and your character could just randomly die from that career before you started it.
Well, and that's the thing. One of the things I wanted to do when I came up with the basics for what became our character creation system is I wanted the players to feel invested in their characters. I wanted them to tell stories with them, to really feel like this is somebody they wanted to spend time, not to sound gross, but in that character's skin, so that when the game's done and we're all sitting around having a burger, we're telling stories of characters past and we're having a good time because we're telling them as if they were us, because in a way they were.
Well, this brings up another point too. So part of your character creation and then the character progression, there's different ways that you can level up characters. And I believe you guys, instead of a point-based system, you guys went with a milestone-based system. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I personally like the milestone-based system far more than any other one. But what went into deciding to go that route?
That one I will take responsibility for. And I mean responsibility, both the negative and the positive, because there are some negatives to it. One of the things that frustrated me with organized play pre-Adventures League, because Adventures League does a good job of not doing this, is playing a module and coming up literally 10 experience points short of leveling after completing the module. And it's annoying because it's like, look, all you do is throw me one more kobold to kill and I would have made it. So the idea was a milestone literally is, in the most basic definition, one module. You played one module, you earned one milestone. And the mathematics for it were whatever your current level is, that's how many milestones you have to earn to get to the next level. So to go from first level to second level, you just need one milestone. Play one module, your second level. But then it starts compounding. To get from second level to third, you need 2. That's 2 more, not 2 total. To get from 3rd level to 4th, you need 3 more. So there's still that idea that it does get harder and harder to level, but it's not undoable. And it's very simple. You can look at your character, go, I only need 2 more milestones in order to level. At this con, if I get a chance, I'm playing this character twice because I want this next level.
Yeah, that's one thing that I always thought was interesting too, is the fact that if you allow characters to level up too fast, I've heard a lot of people have issues with having to run high level campaigns and the issues that come with having your characters too powerful. So have you found that using that system, the milestone system, allows you to develop the characters more before they just go up in higher levels too fast?
For the most part, I know one of our friends still would like it to be a little bit slower just because he ran into the same thing I did in previous games where we'd always end up at the low table, as it were. And so as a result, we'd be making new characters every couple of cons or whatever. And so we'd never actually get to know the character that had just gone on to the next level, the next tier of play. So as a result, that's one thing that can be problematic because we can only run so many tables, we can only run so many modules, and we have to cater to the low end, especially at like the game days that you're in charge of, where we're looking to bring in new people, can't even count on having too many, as it were, of our own people that have already played and therefore have the higher level characters. So we end up playing low. Whenever you do that, you end up needing more characters, which has its good and bad points. You get to play new things, try out stuff, find out that was the worst idea you ever had. This guy's never going to see the table ever again. or this is the greatest thing ever, which leads to some people getting into a trap of pretty much making that same character over and over again. And I know I've been accused of that with regard to playing rogues. And Eric, for himself, has been accused of playing mages.
Which is hilarious because I have yet to actually play a wizard in 5th edition at a Kysie return table. but people love to point that finger at me and go, oh yeah, you're the wizard. No, I'm not. that was a different game using a different system.
And that's now one of the
that's one of our personages of note for Kysie Returned. It's one of the background characters that maybe call him a quest giver at times.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very true. And
okay.
You know who it is.
Okay, I'm checking with you now on that one.
I wanted to double back to something that Eric said a little bit earlier. You expressed a focus on getting people invested in their characters.
Yeah.
Does your storyline, how does it treat player character death? Does it treat it differently? Because like if you want people to get invested in their character, do you necessarily want to kill them off?
Well, the big thing is, and this is just me, and I try to get the other GMs to hold this. This is giving away a little bit of secrets. I try not to kill player characters. I will, if I need to, pull DM caveat and make sure not to unnecessarily kill them. Now, if they get in a situation that no amount of logic or even fantasy illogic I can use can save them, there's not much I can do.
I don't want to sneak past that dragon. I'm going to poke it with my sword.
Yeah. If you're going to do something like that, I can only do so much to save you.
Touch the dagger. He touched the dagger.
But yeah, I at least try to, and I know Jason and Becca do too. We try to avoid player character death as much as possible. There are a lot of other ways you can spank players for.
Oh, so dismemberment's fine? Dismemberment's fine?
Well, no, but I'll tell you what. If you want to see some real almost tears at a table, take a character who's made some very, very, very poor decisions time and time again, and take a valued item that they really identify their character with off of them, or take away a plot point. Maybe they've talked about their kid sister at home, and all of a sudden their actions have led to the bad guy kidnapping their kid sister, which sets up a module for you to write in the future specifically for that character in mind. But it's the idea of there's still consequences other than character death that you can use narratively, because this, as much as people like to equate writing modules with writing novels and stories, it's not the same. When you're a writer, you're the one creating the characters, you're the one creating all the stories. When you're a DM, you're only a partial writer. You create a framework. Your players fill everything else in, and it's their characters. And if you just willy-nilly start killing players, start killing their characters, you're gonna hurt feeling, and that's not a good thing in any game. I mean, death still needs to be there. It still needs to be a possible consequence. But when you just start doing it to do it to be a bit of an edgy jerk, you disenfranchise players, and that's not cool to do.
Yeah, my personal take on it is players in especially in a fantasy setting want and need to be able to do the flashy things. So they often put themselves in extravagant, extremely dangerous situations. And sometimes, people can die. And even if it's just like an extra character or an important NPC, they need to be aware of that possibility.
I mean, I've had in non-COS world games, I've had characters do such extreme things as to jump off of the spar of a ship with a sail line in hand to raise the sail to get them out of a storm's worst winds. The guy jumped into a stormy ocean. In real life, you're dead. You're done. You don't get out of that. If you do, you're the lucky happenstance. But in a D&D game or any other role-playing game, there still should be that heroic chance, because you're the one, like you said, you're the one running out and doing something extreme, because this is your chance to be that Errol Flynn, that swashbuckling hero. That's really the idea of these games.
And of course, there's always the issue of if a player has done something truly stupid, or the character's done something truly stupid. I think Kim can talk to this. Not that she's done it, but she mentioned to me a couple of days ago about one of her fondest memories of a game that was played. And before she goes into that, the player knew what he was doing. He didn't like the character anymore, and so he put himself in this situation. But I think Kim will tell it now. She's pretty good at telling it.
Oh gosh, we'll see how to tell it without doing any spoilers, because who knows? Someone listening might run this campaign, and I don't want to spoil it for them. But let's just say there is a certain object in this campaign that was cursed. And by the end of the campaign, we knew it was cursed. We knew it was the problem. So I believe my character, I had an archer in that one, Calthea, and she took this trick shot, got the cursed object off the person who was feeling the ill effects of it. And then dude, just outright went and picked the thing up after we just spent the whole campaign trying to undo the effects of the cursed item.
For that one, I specifically remember we were all the rest of us were all trying to figure out what we had in our inventories. We used to pick it up. We were discussing if we pick this up with a bag, would it still affect us? And we were deciding we want to risk it. And this guy was screw it, walked over, picked it up, and then Fry was running. Fry goes, give me your character sheet.
Yeah, because that was a great example of you just did something
so stupid,
to the point where I can't save you. I've literally thrown up every warning sign I can not to do this, and you did it.
I mean, but that's a set piece moment. If someone has their character sheet in hand and is hey, I am going to sacrifice myself for the greater good of the rest of my party, right?
Well, the best thing is I actually still have that character sheet. It's in a folder right beside me. It's been turned into an NPC for an upcoming module where it's now under the influence of this evil artifact, and he's now a bad guy. And there's a very good chance that the guy that originally played him will play in the module where his new character has to face his old character.
Oh, I hope he does. I hope he does.
Because of a decision that he made. That's the fun crossover we have between the home play and the organized play, since we are such a nice and closer knit community with this versus, say, Adventurers League. Again, not the Down Talk Adventures League, but they cater to thousands of players. It would be so hard to do that.
I think it's funny because it'll be you finally vanquish the villain, he falls over, the dagger rolls out of his hand. I pick up the dagger.
That's pretty much exactly what happened.
Pretty much, yeah.
Freaking out. We were why would you do that?
Because I was keeping all of you safe, was the argument he made.
We were we could have just left it there even. You didn't have to touch it.
I think it would be awesome if he does it the second time around.
His
old character, and he's
just what I'll do.
I pick up the dagger.
Hopefully he won't watch the podcast and get that idea.
Well, no,
he probably would.
Here's the problem. I've known the player. I actually introduced him to D&D back in 1995, years ago, and I can tell you with utmost sincerity and confidence, if another situation like that comes up, he would do something just like that again.
Pretty funny.
Yep.
So that brings up a good point. And Tabletop Gaming Guild is all about the experiences and memories.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be, and you can think about it for a second, but what would be the most defining experience that you had running Kysie or playing it? What is the one thing that really
that's a
makes
bomb.
you makes you remember it with fondness or whatnot?
I'm glad that Dan at least acknowledges how difficult that one is to narrow down.
I just want to be able to take a slight nap while you guys think. No kidding.
Oh, okay. I see how it is.
I'm old.
Yeah, and you've been up for a while.
I know. It's past my bedtime. We could probably ask a different question. You can think about that.
Oh, while you're thinking about that, we could ask, have you ever had a issue with like potentially Leroy Jenkins types when we were talking about like people that would want their characters to die, like where somebody was wanted to die so bad that he almost kills everybody?
Yes, I actually have.
Yeah.
And the player that we mentioned before with the dagger, he and his son are very good for that.
Yes.
They're wonderful people, and I enjoy running for them greatly. But the two of them got into a fight one time. You know, their characters got into a fight, and they're dragging each other in different places and everything. I probably would have put a stop to it, but the rest of the table was cracking up to the point that everyone okay with this? Yeah, we want to see how this. So
remember that, and everyone was like, "Yes, we're gonna place bets on this. We have to see how this ends. We have to know who's gonna win."
Does that become a problem, and how would you deal with that if it becomes a problem? But you kind of sort of answered the first half. It wasn't really a problem in your situation, but if it did become a problem, what would you do?
Well, in a way, we have run into that sort of. Becca started bringing up a case where someone got really upset about the way things were going, and ultimately she was able to calm him down, move him off. But yeah, let's see.
I think in that specific situation, he did kind of Leroy Jenkins himself into the situation, and then once he was in it, it was like scrambling to get out of it, and it was actually like a plot point that they were going to end up in this, and that they were going to have to like go through it, and he was trying to like back out of it. So whenever he was like making all these rolls, and I was like, "Oh, you're so close, but not quite," he started like getting really upset by it and not really getting the idea that, hey, like this is supposed to happen, like this is how it's going to happen. Eventually I did get him calmed down. He's like, okay, I understand, like we're going forward. But it was definitely very stressful in the moment, and that was like while I was still pretty new, so I was like tensions through the roof, very stressed. But it's kind of a rare occurrence.
I think I know the player you're talking about. And one of the talks that I have had with a number of players over the years is you have to remember that, yeah, you're the hero of the story, but even the hero can make mistakes and bad decisions. But the difference is the hero in the story then walks through the bad decision and tries to make it right. He doesn't sit back and gripe about, oh, you're out to get me or anything like that. He just moves forward with where he's at. And that really, I think that's something that a lot of players need to remember is it's okay to make bad decisions. Just don't dwell on it. Just try to move forward through it and make good on it.
That bad experience that Becca briefly outlined brought to mind, I only recently became aware of some safety tools for RPGs. Ludology had a podcast about it. Are you guys familiar with, I'm assuming you guys are at least familiar with some safety tools. Have you adopted any into your personal games?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by a safety tool.
I might know. Do you mean like, I'm trying to think of a way?
Like the classic example, I guess, one of the oldest examples is the X card, where players are given like a card with like a red X on it. And if something's happening that they're definitely not okay with, they sort of like flash it at the rest of the table, and that allows the rest of the group to back off whatever they're about to do because it's making that person uncomfortable.
Okay, you're talking about like personal uncomfortability, like with a subject matter or something like that. Okay.
Yes.
I know I myself use Monty Cook, who he's kind of both an angel and a demon in the gaming community, but Monty Cook Games came out with a very great game consent form, and it literally is a half sheet page that you can fill out as a player of if you have a problem with certain subject matters, no matter what they are. This gives you a chance to say what those problems are, so that then you can give that to the GM, and the GM can look at it and go, oh, well, maybe then this module wouldn't be a good choice for you to play, or okay, now I know I need to change this up because I don't want to alienate that player. I don't want to make them uncomfortable, because that's not that's not real fun to do to anybody. And if you think that's fun to do, I don't think you're in games for the reason you think you're in games.
And we don't have any mechanical device like you said with the card with the X or anything like that, but we try to be cognizant of how the players are. If we see someone that's looking really not good about something, then you change it up. If they outright tell you that's a problem, you find a way around it. One of the fun things of being the GM is dealing with the fact that the players are never going to go the way you think they are. I've run a couple of mods, a couple times over. We try not to, but it happens, especially whenever we first had the game days. Whenever those first started, we're used to having 6 months in between cons in order to make mods. I think I found out less than a month beforehand that we were doing the first library game day. And so I pulled out one I'd already done. And amazingly, people found a completely different way of doing it. It was so different that if I told someone the stories, they wouldn't realize it was the same module. And the one that has been brought up a number of times that was my first one running. And actually, it tends to be my favorite probably. To go back to a question that had been asked in that mod, let's see, it is actually the first one that deals with the whole cracked reality. The players meet a character who's known them for 10 years. They have no idea who this person is. They've never met them before. But when they meet them, there's a table laid out for them to have a meal, and it has all of their favorite dishes on it, exactly placed for them. And throughout the module, they end up running across a situation where it was a bright sunny day whenever they met that person, and they sent them down the road. And suddenly it's a cold, rainy day, and as far as their character's concerned, has been the entire day. One of the players actually sat down and tried to think going back through the day and trying to find where the two diverged or whatever. And actually, they never found a spot. They existed completely in the rainy day and completely in the other day. And then it goes on, and they get to an inn, and in the inn, they meet the person, it's actually a little girl at that point whose parents own that inn, and trying not to ruin anything, trying to think how to tell the rest of that story without ruining anything. Looks like Becca's got her hand up. I don't know if she's trying to say that she wants to get in here.
Or slap you. I don't know. One of
Yeah,
them.
it could be either one.
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, I'm not sure there is a way to finish that story without spoiling it. And second of all, to go back to what Dan was referring to, which was, I think, more like triggers and like trigger warnings and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Don't have anything like that mechanically. I definitely do think it's a good idea and something that I would definitely think about implementing. It's something like we've always tried to be conscious of. We don't bring up like crazy things like that, or we, at least as far as I know, try to avoid anything that, would be common sense. Like, hey, that's kind of messed up. Probably don't talk about that. And certainly if anybody were to be like, hey, can I talk to you? Or like shoots you a message or something, any one of us would immediately like stop that, change that, whatever. But definitely, I think, especially with Fry saying he has like a form for it, definitely something that we're probably gonna discuss how to implement that. Yeah, dude, I do not know how to finish your mod without spoiling it, because like
Okay,
right
I guess I'll leave it there then.
Gonna have to leave it at the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say
So-
for me with the safety tools and those types of things, it's probably with the Kysie group, knowing that a lot of the players are people that you already play with, that well, you get to kind of know what each other is okay with and what they're not okay with. And though it's probably still a good thing to have for your groups, especially when you are at conventions playing, because you never know who might sit down at the table. I know, especially for like Adventurers League, where most of the time when I run a game, it's at least half the table are people I've never met before in my life. In those situations, I find it to really be helpful to at least mention to everyone, hey, this is what this story is going to be about. But if there's anything that comes up throughout the story and we're playing and you start to feel uncomfortable, please let me know, because I always want them to know that I care and that I can easily adjust the story as needed to steer away from the subject matter that might be making them uncomfortable. And my rule of thumb is if one person is uncomfortable, that's one too many.
Yeah, I would, much like you, I would rather have you at the table and me have to change up the module than lose you just because I want to run the module the way it's written. I think that's the right focus to have. Is
Absolutely.
Because again, the point is to have fun and get people to come back to the table again, because there's no bigger bit of pride for me, personally at least, than someone, especially someone who had plans to go play something else, saying, hey, I'm going to stay here and play this, even though that they had originally planned to go do something else, because they did have that fun and they did think that it was worth doing.
I think a big point of pride is we met Kim playing board games, and we mentioned how, oh, we're gonna go leave board games to go play some D&D and play some Kysie, and she was like, interested. And that year she actually in the raffle drawing for con that year, she won a big thing of dice, and we were like, next year you got to put those dice to use, got to come join us. And that next year, she came back, she joined us at the tables, she brought her husband, and they've been with us since. I mean, obviously they still go play their board games, but they keep coming back, and that's been like huge, like big point of pride. Very exciting.
Becca did it, everybody. All right, that's right. So RPGs are better than board games. Is that where we're at with this now?
I know.
Let me tell you, I love a good board game.
Yeah, I think everything
not about
has its
one
place.
over the other.
I think
love
this
a
is-
board game. I love a good RPG.
Let's not get into that
See,
debate, okay?
but I
Let's-
think-
let's
But
not-
the listeners
I think
want the
this is-
debate. The listeners want it.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do.
I think this is hilarious because you can ask Jason and Becca, when we used to have cons in person before the plague of COVID hit, we would run Kysie Friday and Saturday at COS VCON and CIBCon, and then Sunday we would all get together and all we would do is play Lords of Waterdeep.
Yeah.
Because we were just like, you know what? I've had a fun time playing role-playing games. I want to play a board game now because it's still about playing the game,
Yeah.
and let's not get into that debate of board game versus role-playing game.
No, absolutely. Anytime I'm getting together with friends around a table to play a game, period,
Yeah.
it is the best. And so
About who's
I
around
love-
the table.
Absolutely. I love this community. I love the community of all the people that I've met as I've learned more board games, as I've learned different role-playing games. It's just, again, and that's why I love what we say at the beginning of each of these podcasts is again, it's about the experiences. It's about the fun that you have with your friends, with your family. It's just, there's nothing like getting together with people and playing games together and just hanging out. And again, whether it's online or in person, just getting together with people, take that time to make time to play games with people, because it's just the best time that you're going to have.
Well, and that brings up a question then that I have for you guys, which I'm sure is maybe something that hasn't quite happened a lot. Do you tend to prefer cooperative games or competitive games at the table? Do you tend to prefer games where it's pitting you against the other players, or it's you as the players against the game itself? Which, because if you look at it, D&D, especially if you use minis, is just a cooperative board game. It's an elaborate rule set, but it's really just it's a collaborative, cooperative board game.
James just wants to kill everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say
I
that.
was gonna say, I
You'll be the betrayer, no matter what.
A lot of my favorite board games are cooperative games.
Absolutely. Mine too.
Yeah.
I love cooperative
But
games.
I do like games like Blood Rage, and I really like just sitting down sometimes and just thwomping people or getting thwomped. It's just, it depends on the group. The idea of board games is the same with RPGs. It's all about everyone having fun.
Yeah.
If someone's not having fun, you're not going to have fun unless you're a weird person. So I honestly will play what everyone else wants to play because I want that experience. I want to have fun. So sometimes we play a lot of cooperative games. Sometimes we play a lot of competitive games. It just depends. I'm good for just about everything, but
I just want to play some games. Yeah.
I
Yep.
just want to play some games.
I was going to say, I think we could all really agree. Like this, everybody on here can agree. We just want to play some games, people.
Yeah.
Games.
Good.
As for myself, as somebody who was primarily a Magic player for a good number of years, I'm probably more competitive than most. But that being said, before I became a Magic player, I ran Dungeons and Dragons and other RPGs for kids at a summer camp for close to 10 years. So I'm really an omni gamer. I've tried just about everything at this point except LARPing, not really my thing, and I've enjoyed most of it. So
Wait, you ran games for kids at a summer camp? You and I need to talk later.
okay.
I'm just gonna leave that there. Personally, I've just realized, like, made the connection between some of my favorite board games. They basically are D&D campaigns with a board. Like one of my favorites is Mansions of Madness.
Yes, you're in
And
good company.
you have your stats, you have your character, the board unfolds, and I love that the DM is played by an app because that means no one else has to do it. Everybody gets to enjoy the game at the same way. And so that is just one of my all-time favorites. I just got the Lord of the Rings version. It's not quite, I don't know. I miss the dice. I like dice.
Yeah, I hate the flipping card.
Journeys in Middle Earth. I don't like it. I want my dice. I really like dice. But anyways, that's an aside. I prefer cooperative games because at the end, no one's going to be mad at me. Because I can get a little competitive when it is competitive.
I think a big thing, I definitely like competitive games, but it hugely depends on who I'm playing with. Because if I'm playing with somebody who's gonna get super like mad or is a sore loser, like that just ruins the whole experience. And then it makes me feel bad if I won, or even if I did better than them. Like then I just feel like I want to throw the whole game, and that's not fun. But if I'm playing with a bunch of people who are, good natured and, can take the loss well, then that makes it worth it. But if it's somebody who's not gonna take the loss well, then I'd rather do cooperative.
Yeah, best people for competitive games are super competitive people that are good natured.
Yes.
I love playing with those people. They generally beat me, but it's fun.
Yeah.
I do not mind losing. Honestly, some of my favorite games I have yet to win. I have yet to do better than last place.
But you had a lot of fun playing.
I have had so much fun. I think one that's a great example, Gizmos. I played it like for an entire weekend. I'm trying to remember what year that was. The year that Pennsylvania had that big freeze randomly. It was like 2017. Like everybody lost a bunch of power. So we were all my family and a couple of friends were crammed into this little apartment together trying to stay warm. They brought out Gizmos and we played that like the whole weekend. I lost every time. I did awful. But at the end of the weekend, I was like, we have to get this game. It was such a good game. They're like, you lost every time. You know that, right? Like you did awful. And I was like, I know. But it was so much fun. I had the best time losing.
Yeah, I think if the point is to win, and that's all, you're not going to really enjoy playing board games.
Yeah.
Because I would definitely have a problem because I hardly win very often. I like to say that I do, so I'll cut this out because everyone just assumes I win in games all the time. But yeah.
Oh, sure. Everyone believes that.
Yeah, James just
How
likes to
often
toot
I've
his
played
own
with you.
horn there.
It's called smack talk, even if I get killed. But I love how I got board games, or we got board games into an RPG conversation. So
like we said, it's not which is better, board games or RPGs. They both have their place and they're both great.
Now I will say that COVID wise, like if I'm playing online, I actually prefer an RPG. There's something that I miss and lose from not having people at a table playing a game. I still enjoy playing the board game virtually, but there's a lot of loss. Where I can still feel the connection with RPGs.
You got like all the little pieces and everything. I know that's huge for me. I love when board games have like all their cute little pieces.
Yeah, you can touch them and move them around.
Play with them.
Yeah.
You can add a bunch of little meeples. You can make a meeple tower. Like there's endless possibilities. And sure, you can still do it, if you're doing it through a tabletop simulator or something. But it's just
that tactile factor is missing.
Yeah.
Is it something about taking the Blood Rage monster and crushing Peter's people with them on the table in real life? It just makes it nice.
I can't wait. I can't wait. One day.
I know it's gonna happen.
One day.
One day, fingers
I want to be at that one.
Yeah.
When Peter finally turns the table and
yeah, he'll probably
table
win.
flips it. Yeah.
That's gonna be
No, he might win. He plays a lot now.
Okay.
That's gonna be when we finally play in person. I mean, am I still allowed to flip the table like we do on Tabletop Simulator?
No.
Oh, okay.
I just had this mental image of you, Peter. I'm not kidding you. Like that one instant you win, just reaching over, hitting play on an old boombox, and all of a sudden Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla starts playing, and you're like, "It's my turn."
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
Oh man.
The standing rule. This is something that was established by John Engel, the general manager for New Dimension Comics. Is you get one table flip, right? So if you're gonna rage out and flip the table, you can. You won't be invited back ever again, but you get that one table flip. One.
Make it good.
Yeah, make it
good.
Well, I mean, the more that we're all talking and we're just having a good time discussing it, this right here, again, drives home. We've got a lot of really great people to play games with. And so if you're out there, if you're listening to the podcast, find your people, play the games, like
Yeah.
It's so much fun when you find that community and get to play your games. So I love it.
I was
And
like,
that brings up,
afraid to ask people too. I found a
Yeah.
lot of people who I never would have guessed were gamers. I've got a coworker at work, never would have guessed she was a video gamer, like never in a million years. And, then it happened to casually come up and I actually asked her, and turns out we play a ton of the same games and I never would have pegged it. So don't be afraid to ask people. You'd be surprised who games and what games they play.
And you don't have to be
News update, folks. We nerds rule the planet.
Yeah,
Yes, we
true.
do.
Yep.
All you need is one really cryptic T-shirt.
that's true.
that brings up something that James asked earlier about maybe what our favorite memory is of Kysie, something that was really memorable. And I gotta say, I don't have one, because one of the things I love is at the end of the game, I always ask the table, did you have a good time? Because that's important to me anyway. And my favorite memory is each and every answer I get, because most of the time I get told, yeah, man, we had a really good time. Thank you. I really enjoy that idea that for at least a couple hours, we were able to entertain each other as friends and have a good time together and put something together as a group, even online. I run a Discord server for role-playing games since COVID came out and stuff like that. There's just that there's still something about the role-playing games for me and games in general that still bring us together, even when we're forced apart by circumstances we can't control. I'm staring down the barrel of a move a few hundred miles away. My wife and I are moving in a month to Cleveland, where her family's from, and that's going to put me out of regular touch with a lot of the local people here in the Western PA area. But I know at any one given time, I can hop online with my friends when they're having a game day or a game night, or Kysie's putting on something for the library, and I get to play that game with my friends. I get to run that game with people I know and some people I don't know. And for those 3, 4, 6 hours, we're all just having a good time being together, even though we're not together. So that's really what my favorite memory is of gaming is. Everything else goes away for those hours, and you're just focused on having that good time with each other.
Yes, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I do want to mention, just before I forget or whatnot, but I did want to mention that I'll put your website link in there, which has tons of PDF documents and stuff about Kysie and stuff. So if they're interested, they can look through those, and there's character sheets and all sorts of fun stuff. But if you want to also put up your link to your Discord server, would that be okay?
Certainly.
So yeah, I'll put all that in there to make it easy. I will say though, from working from home, I really have got into the wearing jammies all the time thing. It is very comfortable.
Let me tell you, I wear scrubs all day, and the fact that I have my at-home jammies and what I call my professional jammies has made it to where I just cannot stand jeans anymore.
I know.
Like, I can't stand, I used to be a person who was like, when I go out, I want to dress up, I want to look nice, maybe not wow, I'm so fancy, but I want to look put together and everything. And now I'm like,
Yeah. My wife's like,
Do
hey,
I
why don't you go to the grocery store? I'm like, but I gotta put on jeans.
on pants?
yeah, I gotta change out of slippers.
This is so much work. It's not worth it.
Well, I hear you did go to the grocery stores in your pajama pants once.
I did, and I'll never hear the end of it.
Of course not.
But they look like pants.
I've been there. I've done that one.
What you got to do, James, is the next time anybody gives you crap for that, just look at him and go, you ought to be glad I made sure I had pants on. You made
Yeah,
me
I
leave
know
the
that's
house.
work enough. So, you know.
Yeah.
I got pants. I got shirt. I got shoes. Let's just be glad we got that far.
Yeah.
How does someone get involved in Kysie? Where does somebody start?
I mean, really, you can hit us up in any way and just be like, hey, I'm interested in this. We take new people all the time. Now, granted, we haven't really had anybody just pop into the Discord randomly and be like, hey, I happen to find this just somehow randomly on the internet and I'm here to play. Usually, a lot of it's been finding people at con, whether people see our stuff when they're signing up and they're like, this looks cool, or they're just wandering around looking for something. But definitely, if somebody were to pop in, we'd be more than welcome to them.
I know at the cons, even the organizers would, if they saw saw somebody that was looking for a D&D game, they would bring them over to the Kysie tables and go, hey, Jason, Eric, here's so-and-so. They're interested in playing D&D. Would you mind showing them and getting them involved in Kysie? And that to us was always a great way.
Mm-hmm.
But, hey, thanks, COVID. We don't have that anymore.
Well, so in the next month, we have COS VCON coming up, which is CosCon's first virtual foray. Will you be having a Kysie or 2 table events happening for that?
Yes, we have 2 tables, every slot on Saturday, and I believe I asked for 1 table per slot on both Friday and Sunday. And for most of those, we're going to be following, trying to remember exactly what we named it, but general gameplay, where the DM will dig out a mod and play it depending on who's there to play. Because obviously, if we've got a lot of people who've been playing for a while, we can play a nice higher level mod and get some time at that. We've got a lot of new people, play a lower level one. It's just the way that works. But we do have also a few mods that are hopefully listed by now. I sent them in a couple of weeks ago.
So we can make sure that we list the link for COS VCon so that people could maybe meet up with Kysie there. And then, like James was saying earlier, we'll also have the links to the Discord so that they can reach out to you that way as well. But yeah, so there's actual games, Kysie games coming up within the next month that people can join in on. And like Jason's saying, if you show up and you've never played before, well, they're gonna have modules for lower level play, and then they'll also have some for the higher level play for those tables that end up having a whole bunch of people who've played before. So that's fantastic. I'm super excited, and the more I learn about Kysie, the more excited I am that there's a group like this in my community. So
piggybacking on what Eric said and answering finally what James's question was, my favorite memory isn't really a particular mod because I've liked a bunch of them, but I think it's just that going from never playing ever in my life to meeting a group of people who are both like excited about what they're doing but very patient and willing to teach. I think that has been my favorite memory is they've just been very patient and willing to teach new players like me and like my husband and like the other people I've seen that have joined us on random one-offs. And you don't always see that in some of the more aggressive fandoms or, the people have been playing for years and years. It's just like, well, pick it up, moving along, and so I've appreciated that.
We've certainly appreciated your contributions to the tables. That's always been a nice thing, is the fact that you are right there and in the thick of things playing. Even before you knew how to play mechanically, you were still invested in the story and moved forward with it. And that's a very nice thing to see. And we have seen that with other new players. But it's also a lot of fun to just show someone how to play the game, what we're so excited about. In fact, I've got a bad habit of running at the mouth about it to people who vaguely were interested enough to say hello, pretty much. But yes, I'm glad that you've enjoyed it.
I think we're all very excited to always help new people. So we're always welcoming them. And it doesn't matter age or skill level. I mean, at the library game days, we've had some kids come over and be interested, even if they can only be there for an hour or 2 and we're planning on running for 3 or 4. We still tell them, yeah, you might have to peace out early. So what? Come hang out. We'll show you what we can, teach you what we can. Hope you have fun doing it. I personally really love that. And I think for my favorite memory, it's definitely not just one mod, whether it be running or playing it. I think my favorite thing is both teaching and helping new people, but also I like end of mods, whether I ran it or I played in it, when people like go back and like share what their favorite thing was or talk about something funny that happened, or even later down the road when we're like, hey, remember that one time this happened? And we're all like dying at it still like a year or 2 later. I think that's my favorite thing, is we can still have those memories, and like a lot of people share those memories. I think that's really great, and I like that we keep adding new people into it. New people get to experience it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Kysie, for showing up and doing this interview. I really appreciate it, and I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you. And thank you for finally getting me to do so. You've been bugging me to do this since before the podcast existed. Actually, before Tabletop Gaming Guild existed, I think. And I know actually part of my reluctance has just been a matter of harassing you.
Yeah, it's the same thing with asking you repeatedly. It's just fun. No, but I'm glad you guys came on it. I liked it a lot. This was one of my goals, to have you guys on there, because I wanted to support you in some way. So it's cool.
And we wanted to support you. What you guys do is, it's huge. I think it's really cool that like this exists in our community. And I mean, obviously podcasts in general are cool, but I like that it's like people that I know and recognize from my community, and this is a thing happening like in my neighborhood. I mean, I use neighborhood in a very large term, but it's happening right here, and it's not something that I have to like be jealous that it's happening like, wow, over, way across the country, or
that big city over there or
yeah, that big city. Like this is like a small city thing.
It doesn't hurt that we're the greatest podcast ever created.
Oh yeah, right. I'm sorry, I should have led with that.
So modest.
I know, right?
He tries hard.
Thank you for listening. If you have any feedback for us, feel free to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Board Game Geek Guild 2989, or our website at tabletopgamingguild.com. Don't forget to like, follow, and or subscribe. Tabletop Gaming Guild is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild LLC. All rights reserved.